Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited about today's podcast. We have a special guest, Alice Shikina. She's a workplace conflict mediator, communication trainer, and an author. She's written a play called Okinawa 1945 and a book, Negotiating with Your Kids. Currently, she's working on her next book, which is called Influenceable. Alice has a background in theater. She's an actress, a director, a producer, a writer. She has her own podcast. She is just fabulous. We go into a deep dive about some communication and negotiation skills. So enjoy, grab your cup of coffee. See you at the end. Alice, welcome. It is so great to see you. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm super happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. I've wanted to sit down and have this conversation with you for such a long time. Truly, you're one of the people I admire, the things that you're doing, and I thought we could do a little bit more of a deep dive into kind of where you are, if that's all right with you.
Yes, let's do it.
So, as I mentioned in my introduction, you are a mediator. You do workplace conflict resolution and conflict resolution other places, and you focus on communication. I'm interested in what got you to become a mediator, because a lot of the mediators I come in contact with as an attorney, they're lawyers or retired lawyers or judges. You never went to law school. So what was the path that took you to become a mediator?
Well, first, I just want to say that there is like an urban myth out there that you have to be a lawyer to be a mediator. Because even lawyers ask me, how are you a mediator if you're not a lawyer? So it's sort of a misconception out there. So I want to clear it up right now. You don't have to be a lawyer to be a mediator. But I got here in a very, I don't even want to say circuitous path. It's more like unexpected. So it wasn't like it was a goal of mine or that I had dreamed of becoming a mediator or that I even knew that there was such a thing as being a mediator. So I actually in 2013 got a part-time job at an au pair agency. So an au pair, for those of you who don't know, it is a live-in child care provider who usually comes from a different country. So if you imagine you've got someone who is between the ages of 18 and 26 taking care of your children, but they also live with you and they are from a different country and their native tongue is not English usually. So you can imagine what kind of conflicts come up, right? Whether it's childcare related, whether it's roommate, housemate related,
Uh-huh.
living, standards and whatnot. So part of that job was to mediate between the host family and the au pair when they were having trouble.
Okay, so
And this,
just working with them when there was problems that might come up with housing or their
yeah,
circumstances of okay.
yes, not even housing because they're living. It's more like, oh, they're not doing the dishes, or I'm not the family's dishwasher, but they keep leaving all their dishes for me over the weekend, right? That kind of
Mhm.
thing. And the stakes couldn't be a little bit high for the au pairs because if they get kicked out of that family, they have to A, find a new family, and B, they have to leave that house and go find another family and move. So there's a
Yeah.
whole moving process that happens again. And if they can't find a new family within 2 weeks, they have to go back to their own countries. And it's not like they just joined, they paid money to get into this program, some as high as $5,000 to get into the program.
Wow,
So if you
okay.
get kicked out and you go home, you've in effect like lost your money and lost your ability to experience life in the United States. So the stakes were a little bit high for the au pairs. And there's a financial stake for the families as well. So it was in everyone's best interest to mediate and
Uh-huh.
try to fix the issue as opposed to like kicking the au pair out because there's a financial cost for the families to do that. Right. And there's also like an interruption in the childcare.
Sure.
So yeah. So for that reason, I did some mediations in that company and I started to understand how to mediate. And oddly enough, Robert, I did not get trained at that time to mediate. They just threw us to the wolves and they just said, go help this family figure things out.
Go figure this thing out. Okay.
Yeah. So I remember my very first mediation. I was terrified because they were fighting, and the mediations always took place at the place of conflict in the host family's home.
Okay.
And as mediators, we know that it's best to use a neutral place to have a mediation,
Mhm.
but it was never neutral. It was like in their living room or kitchen.
Where there's already an imbalance of power for one party
Yes.
over the other. Okay.
Absolutely, and so I was walking into the very heated and sometimes toxic environment where all the problems were occurring. So, it was very, nerve-wracking, but I went in there and I did it, and over time I realized, "Oh, I have a knack for this." Like, I'm
Mhm.
actually really good at it, I'm usually able to help both parties, and I also noticed that, my neutrality was really appreciated by both sides because no matter what the outcome was, both sides always profusely thanked me and said, like, "Thank you so much for helping us. It was really great." So both sides would thank me. So, yeah, so I did that, and then I was working another full-time job, and in 2016, I got laid off from the full-time job, a totally different tech startup job.
Mhm.
I was thinking about what should I do next? I'm not sure what I want to do. I didn't want to do the same work I was doing in the tech startup. So at that time, my boyfriend said, "Oh, why don't you be a mediator?" He said, "You seem to be really good at these mediations with the au pairs and the host families." And I said to him, "You're going to laugh. Don't you have to be a lawyer?" And so he said, "No, you don't." So I looked it up. I learned that there's a certification I have to take.
Mhm.
And so I actually went and did the certification for both mediation and arbitration around the same time, and then I
Smart.
started my business. So that's how I kind of got into it.
So I know you have a background in acting and theater. How much of that has played a role in your as a mediator, arbitrator, negotiator?
Significantly. So I want to just explain a little bit about it for those people who have never studied theater and may not understand the connection between how mediation, negotiation, and acting might be tied together. Because sometimes people always like, they'll say, "What are you talking about?" So when you go into studio acting, which is the type of studying that you do if you, or training that you do if you're going to become a professional, you are really learning to read subtext. You're really learning to read the emotions that are happening with your scene partner, right? To understand, like, even if it's like 1 or 2 seconds of like a fleeting emotion that passes across your face. Like, we have to train and train and train to figure out, like, what is it that you're feeling? What is the
Mhm.
subtext? What is it that you're potentially thinking, but maybe not expressing?
So identifying with the other person that you're interacting with, what's going on in their perspective, so that you can decide what's going to be my response in that.
Yes, and the other thing that we practice hours on end is determining what a character's objective is and how to attain that. So, for example, if I am a mediator and I think, well, my objective is to make sure that these people remain calm, and my objective is to get them to an agreement, in acting, I would have figured out, like, how do I need to act? How do I need to be in order to achieve my objective?
Okay. So
So it's
you think about the end goal in mind, and what do I need to be? Who do I need to be in this scene, in this conversation, in order to, or now in this mediation, to get the parties to where their goal is, my goal is.
Yeah, but we learn how to affect other people emotionally. Like
Mhm.
in our training, if I had the objective to make you angry, I had to learn how to push all the buttons to make you angry. If my objective was to make you sad, I had to learn all the buttons that I could push to make you sad. Right? And if I wanted you to stand up and walk out the door, and I was told, like, you can't say stand up and walk out the door, you can't say that. So these were secret objectives where you, my scene partner, maybe didn't know what my objective was. But let's say my objective was to make you just get so fed up that you would stand up and walk out the door. So I had to act and do everything I possibly could to make you feel so frustrated that you would just get up and walk to the door. So you learn how to affect other people emotionally so that they do the things that you would like for them to do.
Well, I think I just naturally have that ability to get people frustrated and get them to walk out the door. So that's amazing. No, that's interesting. So that's kind of I equate that kind of with improv type of things when I'm thinking
Yes.
of acting versus reading a script. But even if, say, I'm handed a script, I still have to do, or you would still have to do the subtext. What is
Yes.
what's the motivation behind it, and where is it going to go. And so you took some of those skills and you applied it in the negotiations that you were doing, the mediations that you were doing, and onward.
Yes. And what happens for me in mediation is I'm really trying to listen for the subtext. So if we just call my clients, for the purpose of this conversation, the characters, I'm really trying to read their subtext. What are they actually thinking or feeling that they're not expressing through words? They may be
Mhm.
expressing through nonverbal communication because the majority of communication is nonverbal. And so we're taught to read those cues, right? Like, how are they looking at me? What is their facial expression? What's their tone of voice? What's the pace at which they're speaking? So, all of these things I'm picking up on because I'm trying to understand what is the message that might be communicated non-verbally, but that is not being communicated verbally. And I feel like in our society, we read a lot of times mainly the words, right? We are
Mhm.
hearing the words and we take in that message only, and we're missing, I don't know, like 70% of the rest of the communication that's happening because it's nonverbal. We
Mhm.
either ignore it, don't notice it, don't pick up on it, right? And so my job is to really pick up on all the nonverbal cues to be able to really understand what's happening.
Do you think that ability to pick up on the nonverbal cues, like expanding the communication beyond just what the words are and looking at the subtext, is that a learned skill? Is that something that's innate? And what's your take on that?
I think it is a learned skill. Obviously, some people might do it more naturally than others, but I believe that if everyone studied, and I don't necessarily mean study acting, like if you took an improv class, you would probably learn a little bit better how to read these nonverbal cues because a lot of that is there in improv, right? And so I think that people can learn that. They can either take communication courses, they can go and take acting class or even improv. And the nice thing about taking improv or acting classes is that it's fun and you improve your communication skills.
Yeah. And improv is fun. It's when you start really getting into it. I've done some improv in the past, and um, it can be sometimes really difficult. The whole yes and moving it forward, and I love that. So one of the ways I met you, Alice, was I took one of your negotiation classes, and that was several years ago. And I was really impressed, not only with your knowledge, but the level of skill. You obviously put in a lot of preparation, and you had people in the class from a wide variety. There were a couple of attorneys, but there are a lot of people from other walks of life for whom negotiation is important. And I know, I mean, your podcast is Negotiations with Alice. If, by the way, if you are not subscribing to her podcast, please do. She has some wonderful guests on there, and I always walk away with wonderful tips. So thank you for doing that. But tell me a little bit about teaching other people about negotiations.
I am very passionate about that, especially because a lot of people don't feel confident when they negotiate. And I believe that it is a skill that everyone can learn. And I believe it is a skill that everyone can feel confident in. And it's just a matter of like learning. It's just like riding a bicycle, right? I don't even want to say a bicycle. How about riding a skateboard or surfing? Because
Okay.
everyone can do it, but it's slightly more difficult than getting on a bicycle, right?
And
It's
the more
slightly.
you practice it, the better you're going to get at it.
Yes. And so I feel like that is a very apt analogy to say, okay, well, you can't just learn the steps. Like you can't watch a video on how to skateboard and then say, okay, I watched like 30 hours of skateboarding videos. I think I know how to do it, and just get on and go, because you're still going to fall. You're still going to have to learn to balance. And so negotiation is a lot of that kind of like picking up on perceptions in the immediate moment, trying to pick up the nonverbal communication, what's happening with the other person. Because, people are holding their cards close to their
Mhm.
heart when they're negotiating. They might not, especially lawyers, right? They're not going to give up their like bottom line. They're like, oh no, this is our bottom line. And I'm like, I don't think it's their bottom line, but that's okay. We'll get past that in a moment. And so you really have to train your ability to read what's going on in the room and try to understand where can you push the boundaries? How far can you push the boundaries? You don't want to push the boundaries so hard that people get up and leave the negotiation, or they just say, you know what, this is so insulting. I don't want to talk to you anymore and forget it.
Mhm,
And this negotiation is done. And I'm not going to even entertain any more offers, right? You don't want to go that far. And
mhm.
so you can only do that by doing two things. One, learning the skills, and two, practicing. And
Yeah.
so I'm very passionate about helping people in my coaching programs because we actually practice it. It's not a class where I'm talking the whole time. People jump in, they practice, then they get feedback from the other person to say, when you said this, you shifted something for me, or I
Mhm.
started really leaning in. And it's interesting because you might get information from someone who is practicing with you that you never realize. I had an example where a woman gave up halfway through. She was like, "You know what? I can't do this. Like, I can't change your mind." And
Okay.
interestingly enough, her scene partner said, "You actually already were changing my mind. I was already starting to come to see your point of view." So
So the person
you
didn't
don't know
the
these things.
the person didn't even realize that they were having the effect,
Correct.
and it wasn't until they got the feedback that was one of the more powerful parts of the negotiation class that you did was there's all these tools, and you provided a wealth of different tools, but even more importantly, you provided the opportunity to practice those tools in a safe environment. Because as a mediator, going into my first mediation, it's like, well, if I haven't tried that, or even a negotiation, having not tried those tools, it's nice to be able to try them out in a place where eh, I might fall down, I might get scraped, but I'm not going to break bone.
Yes. And to that end, I want to, tell the listeners if they're going into an important negotiation, it's really, really helpful to at least practice, even if it's one time. Practice with a friend, a colleague, someone who you trust, and just say, okay, here, you're going to play this role. This is the position I want you to take, and I want you to make it really, really difficult. And here are some of the questions I want you to ask me, right?
Mhm.
And practice, because even practicing one time, you're going to notice a significant difference when you go in to do the real thing
Yep.
because of the fact that your mouth has already spoken all of these words. And so it will be that much easier when you go and do it for real. Do not have your first time be in the real negotiation. Like,
Yeah,
practice before you go.
that is such great advice, and I know we're using the word negotiation, but it's broader than that. Because I mean, really, a negotiation is any time you're trying to, I would say, reach a resolution with some other party. So I see that in the workplace a lot. If I'm going to have a conversation with you about how you're not doing your job or what I need you to do, that is a negotiation.
Yes.
So that idea about practicing it ahead of time, let me sit down, let me have that conversation, whether it's with somebody else or a mirror or whatever it is, can help get the bugs out. And again, I like that your mouth has already said the words before.
Yep. Definitely.
So obviously, a big part of negotiation is communication. What types of things have you done in your life to be a more effective communicator?
So, one of the things I'm going to tell a story about 20-ish, maybe more than 20 years ago at this point. I had a job where everyone in the San Francisco Bay Area office was laid off, everyone, including me, including my boss and all my
Okay.
coworkers, because they were moving the entire company to the East Coast. The real estate was cheaper, and it was cheaper for them to pay the employees less money.
Hmm.
And they also told everyone, we are not offering any moving contracts where they're gonna pay for people to move, right?
So
So
were they
everyone,
saying, "Wanted to come, you could come, but we're
but
not."
we're not paying for anything, and yeah. So basically everyone was gone. And this is like
Yeah.
a few hundred people, okay? I was one of the only people that thought to myself, it would behoove them to keep me. I could work from home. And
Hmm.
I had my ideas of why, right? I thought to myself, number one, they don't have to provide office space for me. Number two, they didn't have to retrain someone. Number three, the relationship with the client that I was working with at the time would be seamless. Like, there would be no interruption.
Okay.
Well, I made all of these arguments and I went and spoke with the new boss, the new person who was coming from the East Coast, came over to the West Coast just to do the transition. And her response to me was, you know what? It's a great idea. I totally see your point. And the answer is no. She said, I'd rather hire my own people. No offense to you, but I don't know you. And so I want to hire
Okay.
people that I know. Now, most people, number one, would not have even asked, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they definitely would have stopped if they were told that answer. That's typically what would happen. But I was very dogged in my quest to keep this job. So I thought, because I was very passionate about my points. I felt like my points were very, very accurate. And I felt like it was a strong argument. Right. And so I did not feel like her argument of saying, well, I want to hire people I know was strong enough. So what did I do? I built allies. So we can call this communication, we can call this negotiation, but ally building is obviously a thing, as you see
Uh-huh.
in politics. People are trying to get people on their side and they're doing backdoor dealings. So
Uh-huh.
in effect, I did backdoor dealings. I went to her boss, who was a VP, and I pitched him my idea. And his
Okay.
response was, I think it's a great idea, but I'm going to leave it to her to have the final say. So I was not like, I wasn't happy enough with that answer. So I went directly to my client
You were
and I said,
dogged, weren't you?
I said, do you want me to continue to be your graphic designer? Because I was a graphic designer at the time. And the answer was absolutely. Love working with you, love your work, want to continue working with you. I said, put in a good word for me with the new boss. I said, let her know you want me to stay on. So all these people, I went to one more VP as well. So all these people put in a good word for me.
So you've got all these allies out there doing your work for you, putting in, kind of laying the groundwork
Right.
to hopefully get her to change your mind.
Yes. So then she came back to me and she said, I'm not happy about this, but I will give you a 3-month trial period. I was not happy with the 3-month trial period because I thought 3 months is nothing. I feel like that's just a crumb. My client wisely said, 3 months is better than nothing. Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert, that 3 months of working from home part time as a contractor, that gig went to 8 years.
See? And all because you decided to have the communication, go out there, advocate for yourself
Right.
with a plan. I do like that you involved other people. It's not always easy to kind of go there and not even necessarily like hat in hand because you had this is why this makes sense.
Yes.
And oftentimes I'm advising employees on negotiating the workplace and figuring out what is it that makes sense for what's going to be the win-win solution for the employer as well as, for everybody. That's obviously a great thing to be able to
And
come up with.
and I think that was the reason why I won that negotiation, Robert, because I was thinking about what are the benefits for the company, right? And I never had to explain to them my own wishes because obviously everyone knows that A, I want to keep my job, and B, I'd love to work part time from home. So that
Yeah.
part is obvious. So all I did was push all of the wins that the company would have as well as the client.
Yeah.
And so, faced with all the positive benefits on the company side, it was very difficult for her to say, oh, well, based on my own personal feeling, I just want to hire people I like, right? It's difficult to make that argument if I'm showing up saying it's going to save the company money, it's going to save the company time because they don't have to train a new person.
Well, and when the new boss is telling you that I want my own people, kind of a core value within that is I want somebody I can trust.
Right.
And you created an environment both by going to the person above her as well as going to the client where, okay, she's willing to extend a small amount of trust. And then you were able to execute on that trust and show that that trust was well placed in you by, you know, working for another 8 years.
Yes. So I think that it's really important in communication to advocate for yourself, right? It's interesting because these are different words, right? Communication, advocacy, negotiation, but a lot of times they're all wrapped up in one bundle.
Hmm.
If you are not a competent speaker, if you are not a competent communicator, how do you think that you're supposed to advocate for yourself? You have
Yeah.
to be able to articulate what it is that you need in a way that the other person can hear you and in a way that they can see how it benefits them.
Yeah.
Because people are always interested in what's in it for me.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, at the end of the day, we've got all our own concerns, our own worries. We've got to get our stuff done. We don't want to have to worry about something else. And if there's a way to remove those roadblocks, then there becomes that path forward. Now, I know you're in the process of writing a book. What's it called? Influenceable?
yes, influenceable.
This isn't the first. Excuse me. This isn't the first book you wrote. You wrote a book about Okinawa.
So I wrote a play called Okinawa 1945. It
Okay.
was
Okay.
performed in San Francisco, as well as Hawaii, as well as the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland. So it's been around the world.
So, I mean, I imagine writing for a play versus a book is pretty different.
It is. It's very different.
How's the book coming along?
So I am probably 70% done, and it will be published in around March of next year. So even though it gets done much sooner, then there's the editing process and the marketing process. So there's a bit, of things that have to happen before it goes onto the market. But I'm very excited. It's the basic premise of Influenceable is that in order to become more influential, you need to allow the other person to influence you in some way,
Okay, wait,
right?
let's break that down. In order to become influential,
Influential.
I have to be willing to be influenced.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've never thought of it in that. I mean, I've thought about it in context of, oh, I have to be open and I have to be malleable and willing to make change. Is that what you're suggesting or something else?
Yes, or just to be it's interesting because, on the one hand, I feel like I'm flipping the paradigm, right? Because we're talking about being influenced as opposed to just straight up talking about how to be more influential, how to influence more people, right? But I'm flipping it a little bit, saying if you want to be an influential leader, if you want your people to listen to you need to be open to them. You need
Uh-huh.
to be affected by them. You need to be influenced by their ideas and their thoughts because then you build trust.
Uh-huh.
And once you build trust, now you have even more influence than you did when you did not have as much trust
Yeah.
from them, right?
I 100%. Now that you put in that context, I 100% understand what you're talking about because I see that frequently where you have a manager, supervisor, leader of an organization that is kind of throwing the whip and telling people what to do versus the ones that are, you've got a team, right? The horse and carriage. I've got a team of horses. It's the horses that are moving things. If I don't have them on board, I'm not going to go anywhere. I don't force them to go places. I lead them in the direction, and when we're all aligned, that's where we're going to go. So being influenceable, particularly by your team, makes a lot of sense. I'm going to be a much more effective leader that way.
Yes. Yes.
It's
So it's a
brilliant.
leadership book and it's for business leaders who want to become more influential with their teams. But I'm trying to flip the paradigm to say, let your team influence you, gain their trust, and you will have so much more influence.
That's such an impactful message. So I'm looking forward to when that's coming out. I'm definitely going to be getting a copy. I'm going to ask you to sign it, so just be prepared. So your website is Shikina Mediation.com.
ShikinaMediation.com, and Shikina is spelled how it sounds, Shikina. It's actually an Okinawan last name. Both of my parents are from Okinawa. So yeah, so people can check it out. And I've got a second website, ShikinaNegotiationAcademy.com, for people who are interested in, either having me as a speaker or they want to come and get some coaching from me around negotiation or communication coaching.
And I've seen some of your speaking dynamic. Just so it's a wonderful opportunity. If people can book you to speak at their next event, be a keynote speaker, it's much to their benefit. And again, the podcast negotiations with Alice, subscribe. It's on my list my regular playlist. So thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for all the wisdom you've shared today. It's really, as always, it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.